Success in AP means a different mindset. In this session, we identified 5 different mindset shifts every accounts payable and accounting professional needs to make if they want to be part of the future of accounts payable or of accounting. Join us for this informative discussion and let us know in the comment fields below if you agree or not.
Welcome to the AP Now podcast, the podcast that covers trends, insights, and emerging issues impacting every accounts payable function.
Welcome. I'm Mary Schaeffer, founder of AP Now, the place where you go for all the latest business intelligence you need if you work in, manage, or have responsibility for the accounts payable function. Today we're going to talk about the future, or the near future, in accounts payable, and the mindset that you're going to need to be successful. It's a little different than the mindset, if you will, from the past. Now, the world is changing, and with it, the accounts payable function. The majority of you listening today met the challenges remarkably well that you were faced with in 2020 and 2021. But what's ahead in 2022 and the next few years might be a little different. I want to talk about 5 different mindsets, or some might say attitude changes, or just a different way of looking at things for accounts payable, and for that matter, any accounting, finance, treasury, etc. professionals will need to absorb or to adopt in the coming years in order to be successful. Now, as I go through some of them, you'll see that there's a little blurring and they're not all discrete and there's some overlap, but you'll get where I'm going. Now, the first attribute probably won't come as a surprise to you. We need flexibility. We need to be able to adjust quickly to changes in the marketplace, like we did in the last few years, but we're going to have to do it a little bit more nimbly, perhaps, than we did it in last March and April. We're already seeing signs of this. We're seeing companies who had announced that everybody would be back at work in September, pushing that back a month or two, and we're going to see more of this. I don't know whether it will all be COVID related, but anyway, you'll have to be able to adapt. Now, your work situation is also going to change, or at least for some of us, it's going to change, and you may or may not get what you want. You may like the idea of working remotely. You may have enjoyed it, and your company says, no, everybody back in the office. Or your company says, no, I think you did a good job. You'll stay home. I'm going to get rid of some office space, and you want to go in. So there's going to be some maneuvering there. This probably will be one of the issues that people will consider when they're changing jobs. Can I work remotely or not? And of course, for many organizations, part of this decision is going to be financial, if they can give up some real estate and save some money on the bottom line there. So a whole lot of things going to be going on, and companies may change their minds. Now, I've been reading, and you probably have also, a number of articles talking about the number of people who want to change jobs and the number of people who don't want to go back to their old situation. So, whether this happens to the extent that these numbers are indicating, or even just a fraction of it, there's going to be some disruption in the workplace. And should that happen in your workplace, you may find that you have to pitch in and help, because somebody leaves, and therefore, the work still has to get done, and it takes a while to hire somebody new and to get them up and running and trained. So we may have to be flexible in that regard. One of the things that many accounts payable departments saw in January of 2021, when we first started doing 1099s using the new forms, is that it didn't go as smoothly as everyone had hoped. And in fact, I had one accounts payable manager tell me, you know what, in our shop, everybody had to pitch in to finally get them out. So the whole accounts payable department had to stop what they were doing, work on 1099s in order to meet that January 31st deadline. So I don't know what it'll be in the future, but flexibility is going to be the name of the game. Now, along that line, I've already alluded to that we're going to have to work to adjust to different working situations. Many will have a hybrid working situation, and that hybrid may be just working at home one day a week, or it may be working at home all the time. And like I said, hopefully it will be what your company does will match what you want to do. But before you're digging your heels and you say, I want one or the other, keep in mind that this may increase your options. What am I talking about? So for me, if I'm traveling to the office, my metric, if you will, is I'm willing to commute 1 hour each way. Okay, that's what I'm willing to do. Your metric might be you're willing to go a half an hour each way, maybe an hour and a half, whatever it is. You have some magic number in your head of how long you're willing to commute. But that's when you're going into the office 5 days a week or maybe 4 days a week. Okay, but consider this. What if you only had to go into the office once a week or once a month? Now that situation might change. You might be willing to travel longer, and this will give you more options if you're looking for a new job. Likewise, if you're allowing a lot of remote work, it may give you a larger workforce to choose from should you have an opening. Now, I can tell you two positions that I saw in the last few months. The first one was a situation where the potential employee had the choice of either working in the office or working at home, but there was a salary differential. And I was quite curious when I heard this, and it was actually a job in the UK. And the salary differential in this case was 20%, and it was going into London. And I asked the recruiter who was sharing this information, was that a reasonable adjustment? Did it actually cost that much to commute? And she said, yes, she did. So that was one example. The other one, which I just saw a few weeks ago, was a job for an accounts payable manager paying $100,000. Now, before you get all excited about that, it was in a big city, so expenses were higher, but the person would only have to go into the office once every 3 weeks. Now, think about that. How long would you be willing to commute if you only had to go into the office once every 3 weeks? Okay? And likewise, if you were recruiting, how much bigger would your pool of candidates be if you were willing to offer that flexibility? So one of the things you can do, just as an FYI, if you're wondering what your organization is going to do, and it looks like you're all going back to the office, if you know when the company's lease expires, and corporate leases can be for a really long time, sometimes as much as 10 years or even longer. But if you know when that lease is expiring and when it's up for renewal, that might give you an idea of whether they're going to make any changes. Okay. Now, before we discuss our next attitude, this is something called TQ, or Technology Quotient. I'd like to invite you to subscribe. It's completely free. You can unsubscribe at any time. And by ringing the bell next to the subscribe button, you'll be notified when we upload new accounts payable content, which we do 2 or 3 times a week. And by the way, you don't need a YouTube account to subscribe. You can subscribe if you have a Gmail address. So I already showed my hand a little bit and I tipped it, and I told you I was going to start talking about TQ. This is something that we're starting to see in the press, and companies are starting to talk about people's TQ. Well, I had to look it up, I'm going to be honest. And it stands for Technology Quotient. So just like you have an IQ or an EQ, well, now there's a TQ in the equation. And so I have a definition for you, and I'm going to read it because, well, I want to get it right. So TQ is defined as our ability to assimilate or adapt to technology changes by developing and employing strategies to successfully include technology in our work and our life. And, we've seen it as we go along, and we've kind of known that this was coming, but really, this technology is going to continue to infiltrate probably our lives, but definitely our work lives. Not only that, it's getting better, it's getting easier to use, and it's getting cheaper. And when I say easy to use, I mean more user-friendly. And if you started over the last few years using Teams or Slack or maybe even Zoom, you'll probably recall that once the technology was put on your computer, it was intuitive. You did not need much training. So this is going to continue, especially in the accounts payable space. We're going to have to adapt. We're going to have to learn how to use this new technology, and it's going to continue. There'll be continued new technology to do different things. And I wish I could tell you what, but I don't know. I suspect that some of the new technology, once we get past invoice automation, which I'm going to talk a little bit about, we're going to be talking about analytical stuff. And you look at all the new functionality that's available, for example, in Excel and, of course, Google Sheets. So that's just one of the things. Okay. Now, the next issue, and some of us have already adopted to this, and others are kind of sticking our head in the sand because we don't like it and we don't want to have to deal with it. But at the end of the day, there will be this continued drive towards a paperless AP. And we saw when COVID hit, right off the bat, how much easier a time companies had who had gone down the paperless route compared to those who were stuck relying on paper. And we're going to see this in several ways. We're going to see it, number one, in invoices. We have invoice automation. And even if you just get yourself to the point where all your invoices are either delivered through an automation solution, or if you don't have one, by email, so you don't have to rely on the US mail, and you can get your invoices that way. Paper invoices will go away. Along the same lines, the payment products that are out there are new products coming out there. The levels, for example, of the same-day ACH are going up in March 2022. The limit is going to be $1 million. So lots of new products, new card products. We also have some, instant and real-time payments just starting to infiltrate our space, if you will. It's still a few years coming, but it's out there. But all paperless, okay? We're getting away from those paper checks, although God knows we still have a ton of them. Even things like regulatory filings. Many of you probably are already using the IRS FIRE system, but if you're still filing by paper, you can do it for, if you had 250 returns, 1099 returns, for example, that's going to 100 and possibly at some point in the not too distant future to 10. So we're all going to get rid of the paper, and we're going to have to do a better job being paperless. And again, new products, new innovations, etc. Along that same line, our last mindset change, if you will, and I've been talking about this for a while, but it will continue, and that is continued learning. We're going to have to continually learn, and there's a whole slew of areas that we're going to have to cover. So, for example, technology. There'll be new technology that comes out, new things that we'll use. Again, I don't know what. I wish I did. I could make a lot more money than I do if I could, give you a little heads up, but new technology. And again, it's getting easier, so don't worry about it. You can do it. New products, usually taking advantage of this new technology, but not necessarily always. Okay, so the new products, the new technology. Fraud, this pains me, but there'll be new frauds. There just will be. I'm sorry. And we have to make sure that we're able to, number one, identify them as quickly as possible, and then create routines to protect against them. Sometimes just knowing about the fraud means you'll recognize it. You won't have to have all the rigmarole that we do now, and that is enough to guard against it. But fraud, regulatory issues are going to continue to change. They get more complex. And then we have new best practices. The new best practices may be to take advantage of technology that allows us to do our function easier, faster, quicker, whatever, or it may be in response to a fraud. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of them. All right, so a lot of different mindsets. It's going to be a new and exciting accounts payable and accounting future, but I think that you're all up to it. And along those same lines, are you effectively, in your AP space, partnering with other departments? That's going to be another big change in the coming few years. AP is finally and will continue to get a seat at the table. In episode 100 of the AP Now podcast, I am joined by APAs, the Accounts Payable Association, a global organization in the UK, Jamie Radford, for an intriguing discussion of just how accounts payable can partner with other departments. It's episode 100, and a link to that episode will appear to the left on YouTube. And just in closing, I really do appreciate those thumbs up, those shares, those subscribes, and those comments. Good luck.